Okay, so I think we're good. Hopefully there isn't an echo because I don't know if there is. Um, so we are back playing the Great Ace Attorney. I think I'm going to get rid of this. That looks good. Okay. And should I turn my PNG tuber on? Is the question. Okay. Bum, 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 bum. All right. So I think we're good. All right, let's go. I have actually been working on a new version of my little PNG tuber because she's fine, but you can tell that she's a little rough around the edges, just compared to how other PNG tubers of this type is. So, yeah, let's get going. So we're gonna get back to where we were. I don't remember where we were because it's been a couple weeks. Oh yeah, this guy. What on earth happened here? You found me, haven't you? No need to screw me down any further. Everything here is precisely what it seems. Yeah, well, we've been giving it a thorough going over. Don't you worry, Drebber. What fails to click with me is how you were able to locate my workshop. That I was not expecting. When I heard whistling from the other room, I knew it was time to bolt. Whistling? Ah, that would have been me. Oh. For some reason, I woke in a fine fettle today. Arrgh. No words, just tightly squeezed chips. Gregson must go through so many fried potatoes. Clearly, I must have a screw loose, though. I couldn't remember the combination for the safe. And another one loose, as I couldn't remember on which piece of furniture I'd written it down. We also found a rope over by the wall. Yes, I had hoped to exit through the skylight, but sadly the rope was too short. So then I set about searching for the combination code to open the safe. And burning the incrementing blueprints, don't forget. Regrettably, though, you failed to retrieve the head from the balloon among the rafters. Sorry, I want to check something. Interesting. If I mute my TV, it looks like the capture audio is still being captured, maybe? Hold on. Yeah. That doesn't sound right. Okay. Hopefully this will work out. I don't know. I don't usually do this. I mean, technically my capture card does have a thing where I can put my headphones in. Whatever. And after that, you hid yourself inside the safe. having first set this parcel ticking. Well, I had no intention of being nailed by the police. Sure, okay, dude. Got a death wish, have ya? Hiding right beside a ticking time bomb. Please, why do you suppose I chose to hide inside the safe? It's no ordinary safe. It's specially designed. A dynamite explosion wouldn't leave a scratch on it. So, in fact, the safe was the only safe place. Hey Yoda, you want to steal Drebber's hand? Yes, he is Herlock Sholmes. Because of trademarks, no, copyright. Though I do believe Sherlock Holmes is entering public domain either this year or soon. Soon, I think. Holmes is public domain. He was not public domain when this game came out. Not when this game came out. And also, it's not. Also, I think there's discrepancy between which version of Holmes is public domain. And truth be told, this man is kind of an idiot, so it's fine. Ah, okay, that's probably what it is then. Chances are Capcom didn't want to chance it, because the character is Sherlock Holmes in the Japanese version, but they probably didn't want to chance it with the English release. So he's Herlock Sholmes. And like I said, he's a parody. He's definitely not a one-to-one recreation of Sherlock by any means. Precisely. But once you climbed inside, you wouldn't have been able to get out again. I invite you to look more closely. The safe is fitted with a handle inside to allow the door to be unlocked from within. Yeah, so it is. And I'd always intended to blow this place to smithers in any case. I just wasn't expecting uninvited guests to come along and screw up my plans. Do you mean to say you were planning to blow us all up? No, that was unforeseen. What do you mean? Most people run, you see, when they see a ticking time bomb at their feet. Ah. I calculated the time required to retreat to a safe distance and set the device accordingly. Really? Which books? Because there's a background plot in this game having to do with the Hound of the Baskervilles story. What kind is shitty about Mormons? I think is now the imperative question. Ah, okay. But your endless discourse in here threw a spanner in the works. Is something wrong, Gregson? Do I have something on my face? Besides the usual eyes, ears, nose, and mouth? I think we have a fairly good idea of what's been going on here now. And what about the 2 incidents you've evidently been involved in recently, such as murder? Professor Harebrain's instantaneous kinesis experiment at the Great Exhibition, and the waxwork model you stole, which this head belongs to. That is no ordinary head, you know. That is the head of the professor. Clad in a mask with a lock so strong, I'm unable to open it safely to reveal the killer's identity. I've been considering carrying it around as protection. What's going on here, Gregson? She is our forensic specialist. Her name is Scythe, apparent as it seems to be. I'm sure you're aware that I have sole jurisdiction to investigate here. Yes, well, Dr. Scythe again. So the forensic investigation team are here. And you know full well this engineer is a key witness. Why are you allowing this lawyer access to him? If Lord Strongheart knew of this, you'd be finished. You lot, leave at once. My dear madam, there's no need for such a threatening tone, I assure you. After all, there's no way to greet an old acquaintance. That's no way to greet an old acquaintance, is it, Dr. Scythe? Hello, Sholmes. Mr. Sholmes knows Dr. Scythe? If it's protecting the machine next door that's causing such a sour expression on your face, you're quite misguided. It's really nothing more than a shell. You get out! But of course, we'll show ourselves the door. I see you haven't softened at all. Mr. Naruhodo? Yes? It would appear that our delightfully entertaining investigations have run their course for today. But Mr. Sholmes, let us leave this place in the doctor's capable hands. I said get out. All of you. Your presence here is not required either, Gregson. Understood. I'll just say one thing before I head off. If it wasn't for this lawyer and his companions, we'd never have found this place, and the whole workshop would have been blown to bits. There was a time bomb here. There was a time bomb set in here that this lot disarmed. Inspector? Coo. Something giving you a chuckle, has it, Drebber? Ah, so sorry. Didn't mean to offend. You are quite right, of course. You did disarm the time bomb, didn't you? Yes, you did disarm that one. What are you... That one? You mean... Motherfucker. God damn it. Hi, Rook. What did you do? What did you do? It was 1 hour later when we heard the news. What? What? of the enormous explosion that ripped through the experimentation stage at the Great Exhibition. What is it? Is it time for bed? Professor Harebrain's invention and all its secrets were blown away forever. Hello, Celine. Hello, Cell. Thank you for lurking. I appreciate it. I haven't played in a while, so hopefully we can get a nice chunk of this game done tonight. 24th of October, 9:11 a.m., the Old Bailey, defendant's antechamber. Good morning to you, Mr. Naruhodo. Good morning, Professor. Ready for today's proceedings? I hope so. I should be. Even I, with nothing left to... Good morning, my dear fellows. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, you're here. Why, naturally, a true gentleman stands shoulder to shoulder with his friends in battle at all times. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'll see you later then. Now, Professor, we really need you to remain calm in the courtroom today. Yes, do try your hardest not to enter the witness stand uninvited again. Yes, I will. I realize that it was a mistake. My dear fellows, I must interject. Oh, you're still here, Dr. Sholmes? What's the matter? Surely you have overlooked some praise, have you not, to be cast in my direction? Hold on, give me a second. Don't mind you messing up my bed, but you gotta do it on my bed. Sorry, Rook, for some strange reason, decided to pull one of my blankets onto the floor. And, he's gonna mess up my bed. That's what he does. But if he's gonna mess up my bed, he should stay on my bed. Now he has left. I don't know what's going on with him. Anyway, sorry, I don't follow. Must I spell it out? I, the great Herlock Sholmes, the greatest detective of worldwide acclamation, arouse at some ungodly hour to be here now. First thing in the morning. A miracle, you must agree. Dude, it's like 9 a.m. That's not a miracle. Well, if I must agree then. As you know, my sleep is quite impregnable. Iris had to employ her full gamut of tactics. She pulled the covers off, shook me, poked both cheeks, punched me, and kicked me from the bed. She then poured a boiling cup of water of her latest experimental blend on my face, and at last I was bestirred. Fuck, man. Do you sleep like the dead? Oh my. Iris has been busy. Iris doesn't have it in her to go that far. She's too nice. I sense the spirit of a fellow scientist, one who relishes in the infinite possibilities of blending tea. I'm the one who is worthy of praise here, not Iris. It was my victory. Sorry to cut in. I don't know who this is. That's Gregson. Oh, Inspector Gregson. Good morning. Gregson, my dear fellow. Why the grim expression at this delightfully early hour? Oh, I don't know. Maybe because I've been confronted with a grimmer expression? Eh? Dear me, are you going to take that insult lying down, Professor? What? What? I don't know. Poor Professor. Anyway, here's the paperwork you asked for. What paperwork? What you talking about? Hmm? I took the liberty of requesting it yesterday. I have a feeling that it may prove useful. Brooke, if you keep doing this, you're gonna go to your grave. Do you want to go to your grave? Brooke? Right? Right? Why? It's time for bed. It's time to sleep. Why are you doing this? You got yourself all worked up. Why? Huh? I don't mind you doing it in my room, but you gotta not do this. You gotta stay on my bed. Okay. You wouldn't believe the hoops I had to jump through to get this brought out of the archives. It's the professor's autopsy report. That mass murderers who killed 5 members of the aristocracy. Okay, hold on.
protection.
Sorry, I've been muted that whole time. Whoopsie. Yet somehow she was still bouncing around. Why was that? Okay, now it's picking it up. Sorry, I have to adjust things on occasion. Okay. The theft of a waxwork model, was it? A most extraordinary sounding business. But that has no bearing on this trial, I assure you. Cleave it from your mind. Oh, really, does it now? I've played enough of these games to know otherwise. Oh, shit. I think I pushed something by accident. One sec. Or maybe not. You're familiar with the public experiment carried out at the Great Expedition some days ago? The accused super high voltage instantaneous kinesis demonstration. Yes, you could say that. I am aware of it. There was a terrible accident, wasn't there? It was you, Mr. Drebber, who constructed the vast machine used in the experiment. Or so our investigations indicate. Can you confirm your involvement? Yes, I constructed it in precise accordance with the blueprints, but that's all. Then the court would be very interested to hear your thoughts about the machine, I'm sure. An amazing device, if you ask me. The pinnacle of modern science, making instantaneous kinesis a reality at last. What? Good gracious. Do you mean to say that the experiment was bona fide? Is that your belief, sir? Yes, that is very much my belief. Such a waste that it blew up. We've already established that the machine was nothing more than a prop for an elaborate conjuring trick. You've established nothing of the sort. All that was shown during yesterday's proceedings is that the same outcome could have been produced by means of stage trickery. The defense merely proposed a method and demonstrated its feasibility. Nothing more. But we've procrastinated long enough, I feel. Witness, you will now give your formal testimony about the machine that you constructed for the purpose of the demonstration at the Great Exhibition. Understood. The kinesis machine. I met the young professor approximately 1 year ago through Mr. Osmond's introduction. He provided me with the blueprints and I constructed the machine to his precise specifications. It was no trick. If the whole show was a fraud, it would have required a body double. Tell me, did the victim have a twin? All spectators saw the birdcage appear above their heads and then crash headfirst into the crystal tower. A terrible accident, I grant you. Perhaps the science on which the machine was built was flawed somehow. A body double? That goes without saying, surely. To give the impression that something has moved when in reality it hasn't, it's basic conjuring principle. The deception cannot be achieved without substituting the original with a fake at some point in the performance. But would I be right in saying that you haven't managed to establish anything along those lines? Incidentally, the prosecution has already confirmed that Mr. Osmond has no twin siblings. It's my understanding that this witness is well versed in conjuring artfulness. But such talents do not indicate that he was actually able to accomplish what he claims. Namely, the construction of what by all counts must have been an extremely complex scientific machine. Whatever do you mean? Yesterday's proceedings brought the true nature of your past exploits to light, Mr. Drebber. Indeed it did, my lord. As a swindler who preys on innocent scientists to elicit government grant money through conjuring know-how. Yes, it's true that I possess considerable knowledge of stage magic. But crucially, my scientific knowledge more than matches that of any academic in the field. Investigation of the witnesses' workshop attests to that claim, my lord. As evidence, the police found this Royal Society trophy for young talent in science there. Yes, that's true. We spotted it there ourselves. If a hypothesis is sound, it can always be forged into physical manifestation with sufficient skill. Though I may have sold the secrets of some deceptive wiles to sniveling, talentless scientists in the past, would Would you therefore assert that the explosion of the machine was an unfortunate accident, or, of course, a deliberate act of murder carried out by misuse of the science? I do not like this man. Though I do like his design. Counsel for the defense, your cross-examination, please. Yes, my lord. The kinesis machine. I met the young professor approximately 1 year ago through Mr. Osmond's introduction. So you were already acquainted with Mr. Osmond himself? Not really. By chance, I'd seen his name mentioned in the papers, that's all. I had no interest in his private affairs. If he was an unscrupulous investor, it was of no concern of mine. Yep. As long as people pay their bills, I take up my tools and construct what they ask for. So why did Mr. Osmond approach you in particular then? Who can say? I presume because my name is associated with excellence in engineering. Not to mention excellence in fraud. Hard to gauge, but the point is, all I did was construct the machine according to the blueprints I was given. In other words, the kinesis machine was built on solid scientific principles. Yes, you might say that. Professor Harebrain certainly has a mind like no other. He provided me with the blueprints and I constructed the machine to his precise specifications. It was no trick. It's clear you both have scientific knowledge and knowledge of conjuring magic, however. The more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to handle whatever comes along. But your implication is that I furnished the machine with some trickery, I think. It's a possibility that we have to explore. Unfortunately, though, the machine has been blown to kingdom come. So there's nothing left to explore, is there? It appears that the kinesis machine was fitted with a timed explosive device of some kind. And there's nothing left of that device either. Not a single shred of evidence remaining, I hear. He must have planned all of this from the outset. But in any case, it's abundantly clear that the experiment couldn't have been a trick. If the whole show was a fraud, it would have required a body double. Tell me, did the victim have a twin? Of course, that's it. Mr. Osmond was a twin! Perhaps my learned friend wasn't listening earlier. Mr. Osmond has no twin siblings. No, I heard you before, but the thread of hope hadn't quite left me. The demonstration could have been a trick if there was somebody who looked sufficiently like the victim. But Dr. Scythe absolutely ruled out that as a possibility. It is beyond question that the victim himself, Mr. Osmond, did move from the stage to the Crystal Tower. Hold on one sec. Sorry. I was getting a message that the encoding was overloading the system, so I'm just adjusting that now. Give me a few more moments. Okay. I think we're good now. We'll see if that's still causing it to bug out a little bit. It's not gonna be the best quality, that's all. It's fine. It's fine. It is beyond question that the victim himself, Dr. Osmond, did move from the stage to the Crystal Tower. The fingerprints found at the scene attest to this fact. So it can't have been orchestrated using someone who looked identical to Mr. Osmond then. What are you thinking, Mr. Naruhodo? Oh, no, nothing. Just that the idea of someone who looked identical to the victim is playing on my mind. Okay. All the spectators saw the birdcage appear above their heads and then crash headfirst into the Crystal Tower. It crashed headfirst, you say? According to the many witness reports from those there at the time, yes. Were you not there at the exhibition grounds on that day? Unlikely. I rarely leave my workshop. Yet, another of your unique inventions was found at the scene. Well, it was the unveiling of a machine I'd labor over many months. I saw it clearly with my own eyes, the birdcage plummeting headfirst into the tower. What a surprise. I believe the victim's neck was broken from the headlong fall, wasn't it? How would you have come by that information? Even an infernal recluse like myself, like me, reads the newspapers, you know. According to the reports, 2 injuries were apparent on the victim's body. Yes, he'd been stabbed in the chest by a screwdriver believed to have belonged to the defendant, and he had broken vertebrae in the result of a fall from a considerable height. Correct. My learned friend has been doing his research, it seems. Do we know which injury was the fatal one? Sadly not. Forensic science is not yet at a level where such things can be determined. What we do know is that the victim died having sustained both injuries at some point during the experimentation. Since he was found in the birdcage with his neck broken, it's obvious that he fell from a considerable height. I suppose that's hard to deny. A terrible accident, I grant you. Perhaps the science on which the machine was built was flawed somehow. So you understood the science, did you? Not in the slightest. Oh, right. As I've said a number of times, I'm an engineer. My job is to manufacture according to the blueprints I am given. I would be inviting manifold problems if I foolishly allowed my brain to digest the ideas behind them. I could be accused of stealing those ideas, for example. But how is it possible to construct a machine without really understanding the principles it relies on? Well, you're practicing law without really understanding the principles it relies on, aren't you? A very good point. Stand up for yourself, Mr. Naruto. The point is, the experiment resulted in instantaneous kinesis taking place. As such, the science must be sound. Yes, and really, experimental results are all that matters when it comes to proving a hypothesis. He's certainly very sure of himself. What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, now that the machine has been completely destroyed by yesterday's explosion, it's going to be impossible to argue its authenticity one way or another. But if we're able to establish that it was a piece of the stage trickery rather than genuine science, we will have no grounds on which to demonstrate Professor Harebrain's innocence. Both Mr. Osmond and this man in the sand tricked the professor and used him. They took advantage of his naivete and his unbending belief in his work, and I won't let them get away with it. And seeing the professor is an old friend of Lord Van Zeek's, what on earth must he feeling towards Drebber? Hold on. What a wonderful machine. You really love contraptions like this, don't you? Oh yes, anything mechanical I find absolutely irresistible. Almost irresistible, surely. Well, whenever I see a pocket watch, for example, I can't help myself. I simply have to take it apart. That's worrying. Yes, Father tells the time by the rumblings of his stomach now. He's given up on having a watch. Poor Professor Mikotaba. Oh, jeez. Look, Mr. Naruhodo, what is it? On the bellows just here, there seems to be very dark red stains. Yes, you're right. It looks like blood, actually. Oh my. I'm sure it's not what you're thinking. Ha ha, ha ha, ha ha. When the lens is extended, dark staining is visible on the bellows. Let's see here. Oh look, the cover came open. Yes, now there should be a glass plate inside. You have to change the plate with each new photograph you want to take, you see. Is something wrong? There is no plate. It's been removed. Ah, what a pity. But I suppose if you think about it, this wouldn't be the actual camera that was used at the time. Just like the waxwork isn't an actual person. So we never would have found a photographic print of the executed convict come back to life anyway. Oh, yes, you're quite right, of course. Poor Susato Stan. She looks so devastated. Alright, I think that's that. Death by hanging confirmed at midnight. Sorry, I have to figure out what the heck I'm supposed to present. I don't know if I should present that or not. Or maybe it's this. Yep. We've examined the birdcage that crashed into the crystal tower ourselves. As you can see, the cage, which is a wooden construction, has sustained damage on one particular spot. Following the explosion, it fell some 30 feet into the glass of the crystal tower. The level of damage is to be expected, surely. I agree. The damage itself is entirely understandable. What doesn't make sense is the location of the damage. And I have a driver ready. Great. All the breakages in the wood are at the base of the birdcage, not the top. What are you saying? That's the opposite of where they should be. That's right, my lord. The birdcage at the scene was damaged at its base. So we have reports of the birdcage falling headlong into the crystal tower, yet the damage is at the bottom. The only way to reconcile these two facts is to accept that there were two bird cages in play that day, which were at some point switched. Switched during what wasn't a scientific experiment at all, but an elaborate piece of stage trickery. Good gracious, explain yourself, witness. Well, if we examine the facts, there's only one logical conclusion we can draw. The damage on the base of the birdcage clearly indicates that it crashed tail first into the tower. But multiple witness reports claim it fell head first. The birdcage materialized in the sky next to a balloon flying over the stage following a spontaneous explosion at an altitude of some 60 feet above the ground, which is approximately 18 meters. It then proceeded to fall some 30 feet into the crystal tower after ensuing deflagration. Witness reports amid such chaos are notoriously unreliable. But the victim's neck was broken. Plummeted 30 feet inside a heavy wooden cage. However he fell, it would be unsurprising to find one or two of his vertebrae crushed. A riveting scientific analysis of events from the prosecution there. Though to be even more rigorous, you would have to say it was only one vertebrae, actually. He wasn't quiet for long. I find it hard to see what's motivating Lord Van Zeeks. The witness is clearly a swindler and one who deceived a personal friend of his. If you're going to establish this deception, do it right. Sorry? I feel like that's the undertone here. I like that little glance he gave her. Yes, there's one more point the defense appears to have forgotten. It obviously wasn't a trick, as a certain truth very plainly demonstrates. What? It seems to me that the cross-examination had better continue until we resolve this matter. Mr. Drebber, will you amend your testimony with details of this quote-unquote truth? Of course. We must treat the matter scientifically, after all. Nearly had him there. The kinesis clearly took place because there's nowhere else 30 feet high for the birdcage to have fallen from. What do you mean? Well, before the demonstration began, the victim was alive on stage in front of the audience. Yes, there were lots of witnesses who saw Mr. Osmond on the experimentation stage. That's true. And the victim's neck broke as a result of an impact following a fall. Logically, therefore, the victim must have fallen from somewhere. The balloon that exploded was an altitude of 60 feet. The point of impact on the tower was 30 feet up. The difference of 30 feet, therefore, is therefore the total distance. That difference of 30 feet is therefore the total distance the birdcage fell. Sorry, I can't speak now. And there is no other location from which the cage could have fallen that distance if it didn't drop out of the sky. Ergo, the victim himself must have been beamed from the stage to the sky above the crystal tower. A trick into scientific analysis. Dear me, every time I hear it explained, it sounds increasingly plausible. Oh yes. It's very well thought out. Certainly all the spectators on the day saw it. The birdcage plummeting 30 feet through the air, I mean. Irritatingly, yes. Thing is, engineering is applied science, so sorry, this is what happens. You have to look over everything at like multiple times just to be sure. As seeing the professor, I don't know if this is correct, but nope. There's something else. Why is the photograph flipped? Also, it's on the wrong eye. It should be on his other eye. Oh no, it is on the right eye. That's weird. Would that have been 30 feet? I don't know if this is the right one. Let's see.
Objection.
Yep, it is. Okay. I was probably too fast to jump the gun. This is the diagram of the experimentation stage and its surroundings. We know that somehow the birdcage appeared in midair, falling down to the crystal tower. Fall about 30 feet or 9 meters. However, if you examine the diagram carefully, you'll see that there is one other possible location from which the birdcage could have fallen. The same distance of 30 feet. No. Well, it appears the defense has a possible explanation to put forward. Go ahead, counsel. Yes, my lord, of course. You will indicate the place which you are referring to on this same diagram. The alternative location from which the birdcage could have possibly fallen the requisite 30 feet. And they can just do it here, right?
Take that!
If it had fallen from here, the birdcage would have plummeted the same 30-foot distance.
Objection.
God damn it, do I have to put it inside?
Take that!
There we go. Place I'm referring to it is here. But that's where the birdcage would have been to begin with. Which is exactly the point, my lord. Yes, the birdcage was in the machine on the stage. But what we must also consider is at the height of the stage itself. It turns out the experimentation stage was built at a considerable height above ground level. If you look at this diagram, in fact, you'll see it is about the same height above the ground as the balloon was above the crash site. When the experiment got underway, the machine and the birdcage were engulfed in steam. At that moment, the floor of the stage gave way, and if we assume there to be a void underneath, this bird cage and the one seen by the audience would have fallen almost exactly the same distance. Once again, my lord, all this points to the fact that there was not one birdcage but two. My learned friend, there is no evidence that the stage had such a contrivance in its design. Someone is responsible for the criminal destruction of the kinesis machine itself, it's true. However, the stage still stands. And take a moment to look at this photographic print of the scene following yesterday's explosion. Good lord, the metal grill formed on the floor of the machine is undone. Yes, it most likely blown up by way of the force of the explosion that destroyed the rest of the machine. The defense calls for the space below the stage to be investigated immediately. Mr. Drebber. As you who built the kinesis machine, it was you who built the kinesis machine, which means that it was you who built the two bird cages that were used to carry out this deception. Whether Professor Harebrain's hypothesis is sound or not makes no difference. Because it's the construction of the machine that matters. A machine designed to take Mr. Osmond's life. And lay the blame firmly at the professor's door. Something that could have only been carried out by you, Mr. Enoch Drebber. Grrrr. It's always nice to see the... If my learned friend has reached the end of his wild assertions, the prosecution would like to crush the defense's argument slowly, but surely. What? What? Your argument fails to hold water on 2 counts. 2? Firstly, before and after the experiment, this witness went nowhere near the kinesis machine. Every relevant member of staff from the exhibition can attest to that, has attested to that. And I believe members of Scotland Yard have also been on watch duty at every public experiment. In other words, Mr. Drebber had no opportunity to switch the alleged pair of bird cages. But I've already explained why he wouldn't have needed to. The nonsense with the crossbow, that doesn't bolster your case at all. The man who disappeared from the stage and the man who crashed into the tower are one and the same. The forensic evidence team's report is unequivocal at that point. And the second flaw in your assertion is the distinct lack of motive. Why would this man have wanted to take the victim's life? He had no reason to do so. A motive? Do I have to think of everything myself? I have here a contract provided by the witness. What contract is this, Lord Van Zeeks? The contract into which Mr. Drebber entered with the victim, Mr. Osmond. It reads, Mr. Drebber is to receive 30% of all remunerations from the government grants or other income. 30%? Certainly very favorable contractual conditions. But there was one very important provision bolted onto the clause. What provision? Mr. Drebber may only uphold this right on condition that both contracting parties are alive. In other words, if either of us were to die, the contract would become null and void. So you see, I had nothing to gain from Mr. Osmond's death. A diametric opposite, in fact. Need I say more? The witness had neither an opportunity nor reason to commit the alleged crime. In short, the possibility of Drebber having done as you suggest is nil. Wah. It seems the defense's assertion is somewhat wide off the mark. Lord Van Zeeks, will you submit the contract as evidence, please? Hold on, we're going to look at it real quick. It's true. Mr. Drebber had no opportunities to switch the birdcage under the stage with the one in the crystal tower. He couldn't have done it. And in any case, I have no idea what his motives might have been. There is one aspect of your argument that still holds true, however. There were 2 bird cages. The prosecution is unable to deny that. Ah. So I'm sure you're on the right lines, Mr. Naruhodo. I have no doubt that there are other aspects of your assertion that are undeniable truths too. Well, it would seem that the defense has no rejoinder to offer. Cool. Well, I must say I'm a little surprised. I came here to testify about the machine I built, and instead my reputation is defiled. But the prosecution's counter has set the record straight, I think. It's impossible that I'm the culprit. At the beginning of this trial, we believed that there was only 1 bird cage. Yet we know there must have been 2. In other words, there was more to the demonstration than we realized at first. I think it's abundantly clear that the same applies to the culprit. The stage demonstration was constructed and set up entirely by you, Mr. Drebber. Therefore, it's inconceivable that you had no hand in the events that transpired. So if the circumstances mean that it's impossible that you could have carried out the crime yourself, it points to the fact that someone else was involved. Someone else! Counsel, are you suggesting... Yes, my lord. Mr. Drebber had an accomplice.
Objection.
An accomplice now? Well then, I presume. You're prepared for what's to come? Now that you're accusing not only this witness, but someone else of the most serious crimes? If these accusations turn out to be false, then make no mistake, the prosecution will demand an equally serious punishment for your slander. Well, counsel, do you intend to pursue this course formally accuse another party of involvement in this matter? What do I do here? I don't know for sure if Drebber had an accomplice or even if he really is the culprit here. One way or another, though, I have to make my position clear as a lawyer. So what's my stance going to be? Did Drebber have an accomplice or not? The defense is ready to name Mr. Drebber's accomplice. My lord, my lord, you have received a stark warning already. If you're nevertheless determined, then I must ask you now to identify this alleged accomplice by name. So, your answer then, please. Who do you claim to have been Mr. Drebber's accomplice? Let's see here. VOD. I'm pretty sure it's her. Mostly because she can capture a perfect likeness. So,
Take that!
who is this person? Someone intimately related to the crime, my lord. Someone you surely wouldn't say you don't know? Yes, thank you. I'm aware of the person, obviously. But on what basis do you claim felonious involvement? Oh, jeez. It's obviously the small, rich, foreign child. Clearly, he was the accomplice. I mean, the only other thing I can think of is that it's Odie Osmond, but that doesn't make any sense. Catch those rich foreign children. Nope, definitely not. It's either that or I have to do Balthazar Loon. I do, in theory, have 2 more guesses. Because it could be Balthazar because his balloons were in the sky, but his balloons weren't green. The other option would be Odie Osmond. Well, we know that he doesn't have a twin. That's the thing. It's been recorded that he doesn't have a twin, but then again, he's part of a large criminal... You know what? Let's waste these 2. Let's try this one. Bonk.
Take that!
Nope. Alright, we got one more. One more guess. Let's try Balthazar Loon.
Take that!
Nope. Okay. It's foolproof. I mean, he could have been. You just didn't know he was gonna get murdered. Mardard.
Guilty. Guilty.
Guilty. Guilty.
Guilty!
Guilty.
Alright, let's start over again. Retry from this screen. Yes. And I get all my tries back. Okay, my answer. Who do you claim to have been Dr. Mr. Drebber's accomplice? Let's see here. So I've tried her, him. Does he have a twin? It's not her. I should probably just present the Bohemian Boy. the ridiculously rich child. I mean, it would be ridiculous if it was our client who was the accomplice, because we're trying to say he's not guilty, right? The only other thing I can think of is that it's Drebber who has the... No, let's just try it. I'm gonna just try it. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Take that!
Nope. The music's still playing. Just gonna go through every single character at this point. do want to do the child, but I don't think it's the child. Oh, this is a bad idea.
Take that!
Nope. Yeah. But usually if there isn't an accomplice... No slip-ups this time, Council. Usually if that's the case, it doesn't let you select. Like, it has you go through it all over again. Well, let's try the child. Why not?
Take that!
Can I just use Drebber? Did I use Drebber? I don't think I used Drebber.
Take that!
No. Oh, fine. Unless it's her. Because they should have found that bomb before it went off, right? Yeah. The autopsy, that's true. Alright, let's try it.
Take that!
Okay, this is different. Of course, after all, naming her in this capacity is definitely going to make waves. A lot of waves. I could very well turn every single person in this courtroom against me. I guess it's her. She was not who I was expecting, but I guess it makes sense in the logic of how these games work. You introduce a new character and then you need a new suspect. Right? The enemy will always appear larger than life, but you'll appear exactly the same to the enemy. Ah, yes, the correct answer is the one that makes everyone point their knives at you. It just be like that. It do be like that. Alright, then, here goes. You kept us waiting long enough. Your answer, Council. Now. The person who colluded with Mr. Drebber in order to carry out this wicked crime is Scotland Yard's coroner, Dr. Courtney Scythe. What in the blazes are you talking about, Dr. Scythe? The head of the forensics investigation team and the coroner who conducted the autopsy of the victim? We know there were two bird cages, so who could have carried out the switch to complete the illusion? The accident happened in front of a huge crowd of spectators, and the area was immediately sealed off. Then everyone, police officers included, were banished to make way for the forensic investigation team. When else could have the switch have occurred? It can only have been in that team's presence. It's essential that the court determines exactly what happened following the accident, the event. Blah, blah. The defense demands that Dr. Scythe be summoned to the witness stand at once to testify. Yeah, you're not going to introduce a new character who's never testified and not have them testify, right? It do be like that. You've got nerve, lad. Standing up there, dragging the yard's name through the mud. I didn't mean to. I know the woman very well, and there's no better dead room worker out there. How dare you call her a criminal? Her dad was the professor, wasn't he? My learned friend's imagination appears to be wilder than East End at night. But the recklessness of your accusation aside, there's another grave problem with your argument. One which the prosecution demands you address at once. Grave problem? Oh my word. Who do you claim acted as the victim's doppelganger? What? Certainly, if the birdcage containing the body of the victim was exchanged for another, that cage must also have contained the body. And yet, no missing persons or accidental deaths of anyone even remotely resembling the victim have been reported. Which means there is no one dead or alive who could have fulfilled the role of a body double for Mr. Osmond. That's true. If my argument is that there were two bird cages, then there must have been one person inside each. But, not dead or alive, but waxwork! But I don't know if I've got an answer to this, have I? What can I do to reveal how this body double stunt was achieved? Very well. The defense will address my learned friend's concerns by revealing the identity of a person who acted as Mr. Osmond's body double. Be my guest. Give us a name. In the place of Mr. Osmond in the second birdcage was...
Take that!
I think I have to do this again. Alright. Well, even Susato was like, what the fuck you doing? My learned friend has some your obedient servant vibes. Yeah, that's the whole point.
Guilty.
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 That's why Van Zeeks uses it so much when talking about Renosuke. Like, Van Zeeks actually isn't as racist in this game compared to the first one. He gets real racist in the first one. Like, it's almost fascinating how racist he gets as the game goes on in the first one. Maybe I can present evidence. I think I can present the head. The body double and the birdcage were hiding inside the balloon that was floating above the stage, which means that any witnesses would have seen and then from 60 feet away. So who was it that appeared out of the explosion some 18 meters above the spectators?
Take that!
We know that the victim, Mr. Osmond, was in the birdcage that was situated inside the kinesis machine on stage, and therefore he couldn't have been inside the second birdcage. Instead, that contains something else. What's been described as a body double, which, what fell from the sky, crashed into the crystal tower. Yes, Council, according to your somewhat elaborate version of events. And that body double inside the second birdcage was, in fact... Alright, Mr. Naruhodo, you're ready for this. Just steel yourself and come out with it. Thank you, Miss Usato. I needed that. As I was saying, the body double inside the second birdcage was, as unbelievable as it may seem, that thing there. Why was just that in court? Why is that in court? Reasons. Open your eyes and look into mine, my Nipponese friend. Now tell me, what are you playing at? Stand firm now, Rinosuke. This is the time to show your Japanese spirit. As the court will observe, this is a waxwork model. A model, in fact, of an infamous London murderer from 10 years ago, the Professor.
Objection!
You started by indicating the leader of the forensic investigation team as an accomplice in this crime. And now you moved on to indicating waxworks. Yes! That's about the size of it. But why? And why this waxwork? It looks nothing like the victim. In fact, it could hardly resemble him less. What possible justification can you give? If you want to know why, ask Mr. Drebber. What? Just days before Professor Harebrain performed his public demonstration, Mr. Drebber abducted this model from Madame Tussauds. Did you say abducted? And 2 days after the incident at the Great Exhibition, he returned it to the museum. Then the timing. Is this true, Mr. Drebber? At first I couldn't see why Mr. Drebber would have stolen the waxwork and then given it back again. But now the reason is clear. He took it so that he could have put it inside the second birdcage as a body double for Mr. Osmond.
Objection!
Are you hearing this, ladies and gentlemen of the jury? Are you hearing the defense's astonishing proposal? That the witness fabricated this vast machine with the intention of deceiving some wretched scientist. That he did so in collusion with the country's finest coroner on a public stage in front of a vast audience. And that to effect the deception, he used a waxwork model that in no way resembles the victim. Are we really to believe that this far-fetched tale? What do you decide?
Objection!
Wait! Yes, if you put it like that, of course it sounds implausible. My lord. I need to speak, if you please. Go ahead, Mr. Foreman. Myself and my colleagues have reached an agreement. Very good. In that case, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, will you state your leanings for the court to hear now?
Guilty!
Guilty!
Guilty! Guilty!
Guilty!
Guilty!
Welp. This is how this game be, unfortunately. So, as indicated by the foreman, the jury has reached a consensus. I knew that was going to happen. We shall get through this, Mr. Naruhodo, as we always do. And uncover some new truths along the way, I'm quite sure. Yes, I agree. I'm going to have to appeal to the jurors as usual and see if I can persuade them to change their minds. The defense will now embark on a summation examination. Are you and your fellows ready to proceed, Mr. Foreman? We are, my lord. Very well. In that case, I ask you now to state clearly for all present to hear the grounds on which each of you have decided that the defendant is guilty of the crime of which he is charged. The jurors' contentions. I have known that woman for years. She's never been an accomplice to anything. It's utter nonsense to think those two would ever be conniving with one another. Oh dear, this is the most troubling, but surely the waxwork the man stole has nothing to do with the coroner, is it? I've had my own problems with members of the police. I do not trust them much. I've seen no rigorous proof that this waxwork was ever inside the birdcage. It's conjecture. Accusing someone without right evidences is not a proper job, is he? I won't have it. Who is this child? Somewhat unsurprisingly, it seems the introduction of this waxwork model to the proceedings has polarized opinion. Given that its face is obscured and it's built in no way that resembles that of the victim, I can only applaud my learned friend's temerity at suggesting it as Mr. Osmond's body double. Yes, the applause is deafening, and yes, I know it seems extraordinary. Didn't he still have the head, though? Yes, he did. But that's the point. That's why I have a strong feeling it's actually a greater clue than anyone yet realizes. What are you thinking, Mr. Naruhodo? I can't explain why at the moment, but I feel as though there's a specific reason why it was used, why it had to be this model. Reason? Really? A reason why nothing else would do, you mean? Yes, and I'm convinced that it has something far more significant than whether or not the model looked like the victim. Well, if that's the case, we must prevent the trial from ending prematurely at all costs. Yes, I agree. I have to find a way out of this. Oh, here we go. If you're ready, counsel, you may proceed with the summation examination. Yes, my lord. Jury examination. The defense's rebuttal. We are actually going to take another break because it's been 2 hours. I am going to go get another snack because that's a bad idea, as well as doing a bio break. So BRB. Alright, we are back. Alright. And yes, I do believe he still had a head. He still had the head. Alright, I've known that woman for years. She'd never been accomplice to anything.
Hold it!
The order of things seems to have changed around for some reason. I'm a copper, lad. It's a copper's discretion to bend the rules sometimes when needs must. Hey, cab. What's wrong with that? So many things, sir. Where do I start? I've been working at the yard for 40 odd years. That's even more than I thought. Everything, this is a conflict of interests. We've only had a metropolitan police service in town for 70 years, you know? Of course, times have changed. The public didn't trust coppers back when I started. It was rough. We had to fight crime, and we had to fight to win the public's trust as well. And when we did. Forensic science was in its infancy too, even more than it is now. And she spearheaded the revolution. Wait, how old is she? She's 39, okay. Dr. Scythe, you mean? That's right. About 10 years ago now it was, when I was still a youngish Bobby in the beat. That's when she started making a name for herself as a top-class coroner. And now look at her, head of the forensic investigation team, and a woman no less. Well, you won't hear me complaining. That's what we all dreamt of back then, I tell you. Could you tell me without holding a gun in the air? Yeah, that's kind of important, sir. We were all out to uphold justice, lad. Full of vim and vigor we were. Full of vim. That's coming across loud and clear. It's utter nonsense to think those two would ever have been conniving with one another.
Hold it!
But we're only just starting to understand this case. What are you reading there, sir? The man behind those murders on Solar Pond Street was caught in 2 days flat. That's real policing for you. That's really not relevant to this case, is it? You're wrong there. Because it was Dr. Scythe in charge of examining the bodies. It was evidence arising from her work that led to the arrest of the scoundrel responsible. Oh. That's right. Oh, that woman is the forefront of this country's fight against crime. The idea that she's somehow involved in this murky business is a load of tosh. I thought it was up to me to press the jurors, not the other way around. Oh dear, this is most troubling, but surely the waxwork the man stole has nothing to do with the coroner, is it?
Hold it!
Why would you assume that? Well, quite simply because that unsettling swindler has no relationship with the woman, does he? True, as it stands, we don't know of any connection. Oh gosh. But it would be delightfully romantic if they were somehow to have a mutual interest in the waxwork. Romantic? A woman of society such as myself views everything in terms of relationships, you see. Well, you learn something new every day, even if you don't want to. One might wonder about a possible relationship between the defendant and this coroner woman. Or perhaps between the defendant and the handsome prosecutor just there. This woman may be more astute than I've been giving her credit for. She ships it! She ships it. If that's the woman's stance, then perhaps demonstrating some connection between the waxwork and Dr. Scythe would be enough. Yes, I agree. As soon as we have even a whiff of a connection, she'll be the first to know. They always know. The shippers know. They always know. Always! They feel it in their bones. And it's only like 50% of the time they're right. I've had my own problems with members of the police. I do not trust them much.
Hold it!
What sort of problems as I eat popcorn? Better than zero. Let's just say we have run into each other on numerous occasions when I've been performing on the street. Right, I see. Obviously, artists such as myself, cannot appear on stage as we work in close proximity to our audiences. So we perform great magics in the parks, on street corners, and the like. But the police use any excuse to make our lives difficult. Oh. Mr. Bobby here. Boom.
Excuse me.
Do you have something to say to that, Mr. Ottermole? Who you calling a masmer? Excuse me. Sorry. My mistake. I got confused because I heard you look like him. I don't look anything like the man. You want to be locked up, Sonny? Thanks, Mr. Sholmes. Perhaps we could move on. I was really wondering if you had something you wanted to add in response to what juror number 3 just said. And clearly you do. Back in my day, back in the good old days, it wasn't like this. What was it like, sir? We worked our fingers to the bone to earn the public's trust, we did. And by Jove, we earned it. People respected us back then. Respected you? No one would have called the coroner into question in them days. The coroner's report was the hallmark of an investigation done right. Especially when Dr. Courtney Stevens put her... Stevens? She was the best.
Hold it!
Hold on a minute. What are you talking about? Who's Courtney Stevens? Sorry. Got a bit carried away there. Stevens is Dr. Scythe's maiden name. Her maiden name. That was before she was married. Of course, yes. Silly me. It's Scythe now, isn't it? Oh! Okay. Anyway, the point is, those were the great days of policing, not like now. Sorry to interrupt, sir. But do you think you can change your statement to include that name? Well, yes, I don't see why not. She was Courtney Stevens back when I knew her, of course. A legendary coroner, even.
Hold it!
She was legendary, was she? What did you say? That woman is still the best coroner in the land. Head of forensic investigation team. Legendary was your description, sir. Not mine. Rubbish! That word never passed my lips. I never described anybody that way, ever. Not if they were still in the game. I think the point you're trying to make is that Dr. Scythe is an extremely talented coroner. Would that be fair? It would! If it weren't for the fact that you're trying to drag a legendary woman's reputation through the mud. I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that legendary. Let's try this again. What sort of problems? Oh. Sometimes they even cook up stories to extort monies from the poor. Well, that's definitely not right. Yes, that is why I say if you trust the police, you will have trouble. But here you are claiming this waxwork model was stolen to star in an illusionary spectacular. The idea is so wild, I think I will take my chances and believe the authorities on this occasion. This is how the public at large view Scotland Yard, is it? Our own police force in Tokyo is not even 20 years old yet, is it? Perhaps we should view what's happened here in London as a measure of what may happen at home. Yes, like a Scotland yardstick. I wonder how a policeman would feel listening to the way this juror speaks about the force. I'm sure he'd have a word or two to say in response. I've seen no rigorous proof that this waxwork was ever inside the bird cage. It's conjecture.
Hold it!
But you claim the whole instantaneous kinesis demonstration was a trick. That I did, but there's more than one way to pull a rabbit out of a hat, isn't there? Sorry. I grant you, given that this cage appeared from amidst an explosion, there'd been no need to use a real person. But if a waxwork had been used, the culprit could have at least have had the decency to make it look like the victim. I'm not sure exactly how much criminals are governed by decency. The point is, if you're going to make a claim about that waxwork being inside the bird cage, you need to give us some evidence. Without that, it's just not science. I suppose we should expect nothing less than a logical argument from a fellow of the Royal Society. But that perhaps means his mind could be changed if we were able to manage to present a suitable evidence. Evidence that the Professor Waxwork was inside that birdcage. Can I produce that or not? Not yet, I don't think. Well, I can state quite categorically, sir, that we have no such evidence at this present time. That much was abundantly clear before that brassy proclamation, I assure you. And why you can count on the fact I shan't be changing my leaning. Oh dear. That proclamation was even brassier than yours, Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, if only we had some evidence. Things might be different, though.
Hold it!
I've gotten to ask, why have you brought that corn into court with you? Colonel Cobb? He's been growing back on the farm. Picked him off on my way to town. He's a proper nibbler, he is. Yes, the nibbling seems to be taking quite a while. Maybe you could wait until after the trial? Oh, I don't like the sound of that. You need colonels in times like these. Whenever I sum at big to decide, the kernels always point me in the right direction. See? You're talking about your cob of corn. Nibble, nibble, guilty nibble. Right, nibble, nobble, guilty bobble, nibble, not guilty, out. Nibble, nobble, guilty bobble, nibble, not guilty, out. Perhaps it's akin to fortune telling with flower petals like people do back at home. Could you at least wait until we've had more time to find the truth before deciding the defendant's guilt? Ooh, I don't know about that. My tum's awfully full already. Amazing. I know, it's so perfect that they use kernel for kernel. Because it sounds exactly the same the way I pronounce it. I know it seems a little far-fetched to think that the waxwork model of the professor was in that birdcage. But on the other hand, it explains a lot. If there was really a reason why that particular waxwork had been used as Mr. Osmond's double, we must do everything we can to make the jurors understand it. The truth is, I'm sure that there's a key to this, but that's the most puzzling part too. In this case, you should see what additional information you can glean while trying to change the juror's mind. If you can read a book whilst eating a rice cracker, Mr. Naruhodo, I'm sure you can do this. Right. Yes. So she was the coroner.
Hold it! Hold it!
Between the defendant and this coroner woman. Between the defendant and the handsome prosecutor. She is older than both of them. Can I pit? I'm wondering if I can pit her. Because we have that coroner's report with her old name on it. Oh, let's try it. Nope, no more music. So, juror number 2. Oh my gosh, me? What can I do for you? I presume you heard what juror number 6 said in his statement. It's brought to light the maiden name of the coroner, Dr. Scythe, which in turn has revealed a connection that wasn't apparent before. Well, naturally, as a woman of society, I find such connections and relationships irresistible. But oh golly, I'm afraid I fail to see what you mean. Dr. Scythe's maiden name is Stevens, and through that name, the coroner is definitely linked to the waxwork of the killer. The defense has evidence to prove it. Oh my goodness, evidence, you say? How utterly enthralling. The court cannot overlook that last remark as I eat popcorn. I very much hope that there is substance to your claim. Of course, my lord. I would like the court to look at this. The evidence that clearly links Dr. Scythe to the mass murderer known as the Professor.
Take that!
I have here a certain autopsy report from 10 years ago. A 10-year-old autopsy report? What relevance does that have? It, of course, the autopsy report of the person portrayed in the waxwork, the killer known as the Professor. But the man was a capital offender, so... That's right. This is the certification of death that was drawn up after the convict's execution. The identity of the killer was never made public, so the report gives a few details. What's important is the name of the coroner who wrote it, Courtney Stevens. Oh my, Courtney Stevens. Strike a light. It appears that the professor's autopsy was conducted by Dr. Scythe 10 years ago. I'm eating too fast. Hold on. And a few days ago, Mr. Drebber very deliberately stole the waxwork of the professor from matter to spells. A waxwork that doesn't, in fact, resemble the victim, Dr. Osmond, at all. And do you suppose there's some unsavory relationship between those two events? Okay, absolutely. I'm sure of it. There's no doubt in my mind that the professor case is at the heart of a link that we have yet to uncover between Dr. Courtney Scythe and Mr. Enoch Drebber. Hidden links, mysterious connections, secret relationships. This is all most extraordinary. We're surely obliged now to explore this further. Quite right. We can't let this trial come to an end now. Not while there's a cloud of suspicion hanging over the yard's best coroner. It wasn't like this in my day, but we're still here to uphold justice in the end. professor. That's what links that frightful swindler in the corner. Just want to see what she thinks. Oh, I can't press her anymore. Is there a reason why that particular waxwork had to be used as Mr. Osmond's double? We must do everything we can to make the jurors understand it. The truth is, I'm sure that there's a key to this, but that's the most puzzling part of this too. In that case, you should see what additional information you can glean whilst trying to change the jurors' minds. Right. Yes. Sato is cold sometimes, I swear.
Hold it! Hold it!
Already done that.
Hold it!
I do have evidence. I have the glass. I warn you that I firmly believe it's only wise to trust men in white coats. So given your jet black outfit, I don't mind admitting to a sense of trepidation here. So you don't trust anyone in black? Looking in the mirror must be very trying. Yeah, I know. I have some evidence that proves the waxwork was inside the birdcage, namely... a small fragment of unusual and thick glass found in the folds of the clothing of the Professor Wackworth. It would appear to be from the Crystal Tower.
Take that!
What's that? A piece of glass? Though it's unusually thick for glass. Yes, it's a piece of broken glass that we found inside the jacket of the Waxworth. As you say, it's not ordinary glass though. It's very thick and clearly made for extra strength. Much like the special glass that was developed for the construction of the Crystal Tower. Crystal, holy smoke! Exactly. The centerpiece of the great exhibition where the very incident we're talking about took place. On the day in question, the birdcage fell from above and smashed through a window of that special glass. From whence this small piece originated. Is that it? Precisely. So, what do you say? Now that clear evidence in support of the assertion has been placed before you. Well, as I said, I only trust men in white coats as a rule. However, when the reasoning is sound, it's fair to say color shouldn't come into it. In light of what you've shown me here, yes, I feel obliged to change my position on the matter. In that case, juror number 4, you will amend your statement now, please. The presence of that piece of glass leaves me in a little doubt that the waxwork was indeed inside that birdcage. Thank you for reconsidering your position, sir. Your words are misplaced, my boy. My opinion is governed by logic and science and nothing else. Yes, the science is where you should direct your words of gratitude. Ah. What's the matter with you? Too good to say some words of thanks to the mother of all academic subjects? What is it about scientists, honestly?
Hold it!
Someone tell him philosophy is the mother of all academics. I want to see how fast he blows a gasket. Oh, God. Perhaps it's akin to fortune telling. Oh, he certainly will. So I think I have to put the last two together. It's not that hard to read a book and eat a rice cracker.
Objection!
If you could put your cord down for a moment, juror number 5. Ooh, you mean me? You've pointed out that it's wrong to make an accusation without evidence. But the accusation that the waxwork model was inside the second birdcage in question is not without supporting evidence, as the defense demonstrated to the juror sitting beside you. Oh, is that right? Would it be fair to say you didn't follow the argument? I don't understand much besides Colonel Cobb, to be honest. Of course you don't. If I could interject here. Please do, sir. Now that this assertion of yours about the waxwork has been backed up by solid evidence, it would be wrong of me, as a man of science, not to pursue the matter further. Well, me too then. I think he just wants to go home and eat, which, you know, fair. Sorry? If this brainy gentleman says E's alright, then E must be. See, I wouldn't dream of going against Colonel Cobb or anyone who's got stuff in between the ears. Success! If you can call it that. Thank you, Counsel. That will do. Alright, let's continue this trial. Yay, we did it! A waxwork of the despicable professor. Used as a body double for a victim in this quite extraordinary case. I must say, extremely hard to believe the assertion could possibly be true. However, it would appear that at least warrant further investigation. The waxwork of the professor links Dr. Mr. Drebber and Dr. Scythe. Move on. And I'm convinced there's a special significance to that link. I don't know what you're hoping to prove, lad. I really don't. The truth, sir, by using evidence and testimony. If the court is to delve deeper into the alleged involvement of the waxwork in this case, then the prosecution calls for the owner of the model to be summoned as a witness. The owner? Madame Tuspels. I really thought that Lord Van Zeeks would object to this whole line of inquiry. Very well, I concur. Make arrangement for Madame Tuspels to appear as a witness with immediate effect. Listen carefully, my learned friend. Oh, yes? You should know that you're on the brink of opening Pandora's box. The court shall now adjourn for 45 minutes. During that time, the prosecution will summon the new witness. Oh no! We'll summon the new witness and prepare her for taking the stand. Not into spells. Yes, I shall see to it at once, sir. To be continued. Ah, the knight errant himself. Oh, have you been watching from the gallery, Mr. Sholmes? I've been on the edge of my seat the entire time. The courtroom trials are fascinating affairs, as a spectator at least. I'm glad you've been enjoying yourself. I have to ask. What on earth is going on? It makes no sense. What's this professor business all about? He doesn't look like any professor I've met before. Who even is he? Ah, of course. You were in Germany already 10 years ago. Yes, the professor. When I discovered he was the one who had been abducted, a sense of foreboding stirred within me. Who knew the monster would come knocking at your door? My heartfelt sympathies. Ah ha 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 ha. As it turns out, Lord Van Zeeks is even more intimately tied to this case than any of us realized, isn't he? Yes, how true. His great friend from university is on the dock. And now, a waxwork of the killer who took his esteemed brother's life makes an appearance too. I imagine that the shrewd Mr. Reaper failed to foresee that kick in the teeth. An extraordinary move on your part, my dear fellow, to throw that in front of the man. You make it sound deliberate. I can't help feeling this professor case is really very puzzling. Oh yes? In what particular manner? Well, there's Mr. Drebber, Dr. Scythe, and Lord Van Zeeks. It seems that everybody in the trial has a link to the case somehow. Yes. In fact, I alone am not a member of the set. Though that leaves me as an empty set, all alone with no intersection to any other. Excuse me. Dr. Scythe. Ah, Dr. Courtney Scythe. Nay, Stevens. Good day to you. Hello, Sholmes. That was very shrewd of you. In what in particular, pray? You requested that 10-year-old autopsy report from Gregson, didn't you? Because Gregson told me you did. To think it's been 10 years. 10 years in the lab, wielding my scalpel. I smell nothing of corpses but disinfectant. A policeman on the jury had a lot to say about you as it happens, Dr. Scythe. I have accused you of being complicit in what happened. I'm hoping that you'll take the stand and tell the truth about what really happened. That certainly won't be possible. Lord Van Zeek won't be summoning me as a witness. Lord Strongheart has forbidden it. The Pandora's box you were warned about is the professor's case. Please don't make the mistake of thinking you'll get any information about it out of me. But attempting to hide from the truth, that's cowardice. I've always fought crime in the way that I see fit. I have no regrets, none at all. That's all I came here to say. So, good day to you. I think that's the most pleasant conversation we've had with her. She mentioned it too, this Pandora's box. Well, whatever does it all mean? There's really no cause for concern. I assure you, when the trial resumes, the meaning will become all too apparent whether you like it or not. Now then, I believe it's almost time. Wait. Iris is 10. I must make my way back to the public gallery. The edge of my seat awaits. I think that maybe you're enjoying yourself a little too much. Yes, one word of warning before I go. If in the course of the trial this afternoon you perceive even a shadow of a doubt about the truth, don't let it out of your sight. Pursue it like a dog with a bone. To the bitter end, you understand. Do not falter, whatever may come to pass. Alright, I understand. Thank you. Good. I shall make myself scarce then. I purchased a bar of caramel earlier, so I will be gnawing on that as you gnaw away at the truth. What did that warning from Mr. Sholmes really mean, I wonder? Especially the bit about whatever may come to pass. Oh, so he brought up dogs again. It's time for the final chapter then. I'm determined to find the truth. What are you talking about? It's only turnabout number 3. No matter what. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby reconvene the proceedings of this court. Alright. As the court is aware, the case under our scrutiny began with a damaging incident at the Great Exhibition. We now find ourselves embroiled in the details of a convicted felon who was sent to the gallows a decade ago. This trial has certainly defied all expectation. It seems to be the fate of all trials in which this Nipponese is involved, my lord. It's not like he does it on purpose. So then, let us begin our exploration of the defense's assertion that the waxwork was cardinally involved in this matter. Lord Van Zeeks? My lord? Are we still awaiting the arrival of Madame Tuspels? Not at all. She is in the antechamber as we speak and ready to be summoned. Very well. Bring in the witness. At once, my lord. Bailiff, show Madame Tuspels to the stand. Things are about to become a lot more intense. If Trevor is responsible, as I am sure he is, it means he must have had an accomplice in Dr. Scythe. And what connects the pair of them is the waxwork. Yep, the model of the professor. That's the key to the link between these otherwise unrelated individuals. A tenuous link, admittedly, but at present it's all we've got. State your name and occupation for the court, please. My name is Madame Esmeralda Tuspels. I am a waxwork artisan. And the proprietress of Madame Tuspel's Museum of Waxwork. You'll have to pardon me for working as I testify. My new exhibit must open very soon. Oh, so he finally gets a statue, does he? Now there are 2 of them in the world. Oh my. What expression is she carving into that face? A number of days ago, a particular waxwork model was stolen from your museum. Can you confirm this? Oui, that is true. At first we believed it had been kidnapped. A waxwork model kidnapped? Yes, my lord. There was a demand for ransom money left behind by the culprit. However, according to what I have been told outside the courtroom, that was not the true reason. I understand it was utilized as a substitute for the body of a murder victim. At present, that is no more than conjecture proposed by the defense. This is the victim of the case in question, Mr. VOD Osman. But, of course, I know him well. He is part of my odious personages exhibit. I detest to say what is evident, but Mr. Osman does not resemble the professor at all. But, perhaps, their faces are very similar. Are you suggesting that we now see the demasked visage of the professor? I have here the key, but is strictly forbidden to open the lock. That is absurd. Pardon? I don't know what face you've carved onto your fancy figure beneath that mask. But clearly, it won't be that of the actual killer. Indeed. The man's identity was never made public, after all. The trial took place in a closed court. The proceedings were strictly confidential. The condemned man was summarily executed and his identity remains closely guarded national secret. There's no possible way that a repository of tawdry exhibits could get its hand on that information. Quel dommage. It would seem you are unaware of the Tispel's principles. What principles? The family of Tispels has always prided itself on sculpting its models a la perfection. Perfection. Every detail, including the visage, is fashioned with complete fidelity. Et voila, our principles. It is very well known that the Tispel's waxworks from the time of the French Revolution. A member of the Tispel's family is said to have made a waxwork of the queen who was executed. Oui, that is true. It was a century ago now. I believe the queen's face was carved in minutes following her death, actually at the guillotine site. You are correct. The model is on display still in the House of Horrors. We Tispels will stop at nothing to obtain faithful replicas of our subjects. Dear me, a somewhat disturbing tenacity of purpose. It is the only way to obtain a truly lifelike representation of the subject. And it has been my family's secret for generations. Do you mean to say that beneath that mask, the true visage of the killer is there? This is ludicrous. My battery is low. It's out of the question. The professors spread terror throughout Great Britain. As a result, the Madame Tuspel special exhibit remains extremely popular even today. The killer emerging from his own grave is a sight to behold. You should come. I think, Madame, it would be beneficial to hear your formal testimony on this matter. You will explain every detail of this macabre model and your personal involvement in its creation. Macabre model, sorry. With pleasure. The Professor Waxworth. The special exhibit in the House of Horrors is based on a rumor that shocked society in London. An impression of the visage was taken directly from the corpse, in accordance with Tuspel's family principles. I enlisted the aid of the grave digger and created a mold for the head in the cemetery just before the internment. I hid myself until he gave me the signal. I was there for a very long time that night. As dawn approached, I was very worried that I would be discovered. The gravedigger? The man sanctioned this? I will do all that is necessary to achieve the true resemblance my family is celebrated for. Nobody else knew, only the gravedigger. What harm did it do, You truly saw it? The face of that monster? Naturally, I was aware at that time that his identity was a secret. But to spells would not be to spells if we did not insist in absolute fidelity in our sculptures. I don't believe this. Alright, let me switch out my controllers real quick. Hold on. This will only take 40 seconds. I myself have seen this special exhibit at your museum, madam. A truly blood-curdling scene in which the murderer is emerging from his own grave. The scene depicts... It was the subject of many rumors in London 10 years ago. I have here a newspaper from the time. The special exhibit was based upon the picture in this article. It was the most detailed account of what happened as reported by the eyewitness who saw it. Man rises from the grave. Too absurd for words. Hold on a second there. So we have Odie Osmond's signature. Mad sheep rampage. Unexplained phenomenon grips Oxfordshire reason. Charles Darwin to receive Copley Medal. The Great Stink. Parliament is finally to address the foul issue. After a great many years, Parliament has at long last resolved to relieve the citizens of London of the horrifying stench that carries on the slightest breeze and lingers in the nostrils of every man, woman, and child. A great sewer system to be built underfoot that will divert fecal was the ball mask to blame for the great blaze? Anyway, sorry. Disciple of science at the University of London, resident of the student dorms. Alrighty. So, alrighty. So, Mr. Osmond created this image. Drebber witnessed the professor coming out of the grave. The public enjoy absurdity, monsieur. That is why I have reproduced the scene as carefully as possible in my museum. And it's a waxwork from the exhibit that was stolen some days before the incident at the Great Exhibition, wasn't it? That is correct. The professor you see before you here. Most puzzling. Counsel for the defense, proceed with the cross-examination. But I'll find it. I'll get to the bottom of what really happened. I'll prove that Dr. Scythe and Drebber were in on this crime together. The special exhibit in the House of Horrors is based on a rumor that shocked society in London. And that rumor would be a 10-year-old tale now, but one that no Londoner would ever forget. Ah, right, I know just what you're talking about, I think. Of course, it couldn't be anything else. Yes, the story will never disappear. The tale of the condemned killer rising from the dead, that is the central attraction of my House of Horrors. The rumor was whispered all over the city, and it was like this. It was in Lowgate Cemetery behind the prison in the dead of night after the execution of the killer. The interred professor slid back the stone slab covering his tomb and emerged from his grave. The young man who witnessed this felt a scream welling up inside him, but an instant later he heard an ear-splitting gunshot from over his shoulder. The bullet struck the emerging corpse, and he fell motionless once more. The scream finally found its way out of the mouth of the young witness, and who turned and ran for his life. The corpse climbed out of his own grave. And then somebody shot him. Who was it? Nobody knows, even today. But remember, it's just a rumor, perhaps nothing more than a ghost story. And the good people of London, they love stories like this. That is why in every newspaper across the capital, but it was just a story. I mean, this is exactly the scene that can be seen today in your museum, isn't it? The special exhibit was modeled on that very illustration. For a while afterwards, the contents of the article were reproduced in every newspaper imaginable. Okay. Hold on, because the only way we know about his... Yeah, the signature's the same. Okay. For a while afterwards, the contents of that article were reproduced in every newspaper imaginable. Madam, may I say something? Please go ahead, mademoiselle. When something is described as a rumor, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's entirely made up. I believe that often rumors contain elements of the truth. Ah, I see that people from the East can be just as astute as people of Europe. Can we be sure, for instance, that the professor's execution was successful? It is not possible for the dead to come back to life. 10 years ago, I was there in Lowgate Cemetery. After the criminal known as the professor was killed by hanging, I took a wax impression of his visage from the corpse just before it was interred. So I can assure you, the man was dead. Huh. I want to check something real quick, sorry. Everything looks fine so far. Alright. It would certainly appear that the condemned man suffered the indeed intended fate. An impression of the visage was taken directly from the corpse, in accordance with the Tispel's family principles. Is it true that every waxwork of your museum, then? It is, assuming the subject is dead, of course. Live subjects have to cooperate in a similar way. I have letters from imprisoned criminals all the time, you know. What sort of letters? When my time comes, please make a waxwork of me. Comme ça. My museum is famous, monsieur. To be made into a waxwork is an honor, and for some criminals, a symbol of status even. Because nothing says hardened criminal better than wax. And it's thanks to that one killer in particular that my museum has gained such popularity in London. I refer to the star of the special exhibit, of course, the Professor. Whose form you claim to have captured by taking an impression from the actual corpse. There are no exceptions to the principles of Tispels. I enlisted the aid of the Great Diver and created a mold for the head in the cemetery before the internment. Surely that's illegal, isn't it? It would seem the proprietress of the repository of novelties was blinded by monetary greed. It had nothing to do with money. The man is part of London's criminal history. That is why I had to sculpt him, to record this history. It is the raison d'etre of the Tispels Museum. But if the man was convicted in a closed court and sent for immediate execution, then surely nobody but the members of the judiciary present know the killer's true identity. I assure you that the mask is hidden, I assure you behind that mask is hidden the true face of the Professor. Do you realize what you're saying? The Professor's identity is a national secret. I understand. And now that the truth about the special exhibit has been revealed, it must perhaps close. Of course it will. As will your entire museum if you don't tread carefully, madam. That could be another interesting chapter in the history of my family, I think. Don't you? So, 10 years ago, on the night of the Professor's execution, you took a wax impression of his face from the corpse. Oui, exactement. I hid myself until he gave me a signal. I was there for a very long time that night.
Hold it!
You were there longer than you expected to be? I had some difficulties in capturing the subject's form correctly. I think she said that she was there until dawn. As I removed the mask, the mouth of the cadaver fell open and I had some problems with the chin. Dare I ask? The man had been dead for a short while already, you see. His muscles were relaxing and consequently his chin would not align itself correctly. Oh dear, what a horrible thought. Under normal circumstances, I would have had an assistant with me. However, that night I was alone, and as a consequence, I missed my preferred window of time. What do you mean? When I take an impression of the visage of a cadaver, I always wait until 3 hours after death. Why 3 hours? Is that amount of time significant? It is because of rigor mortis. A wriggly mortis? It's the name given to a phenomenon that occurs in recently deceased bodies. As a rule, 3 hours post-death, the muscles in the body begin to stiffen. But approximately 10 hours post-death, the entire body is completely rigid and inflexible. And then, from that point on, the muscles slowly start to revert to their relaxed state. The effect is often used to estimate the time of death when a body is discovered. Well, that was an education, if a slightly scary one. As the Mademoiselle says, rigor mortis commences 3 hours after death and starts in the jaw. I see, so that's why you wait. Before that time, the mouth falls open and it is very difficult to do my work. It's getting hard for me to do my work with all this talk of corpses. The information about rigor mortis that you just shared with us, would you mind including that in your formal testimony? I believe it could be significant, you see. Of course, I do not mind at all. I can't help but feeling after this latest topic that the atmosphere in the courtroom has become extremely grave. This is no time for jokes, Mr. Sato. Bien sûr. Took me a very long time because it was before the onset of rigor mortis.
Hold it!
Rigor mortis being the phenomenon you described whereby the corpse becomes stiff after death. I think you said it starts in the jaw about 3 hours post-death. Is that correct? Oui, c'est ça. Of course, the exact duration depends a little on the season. I didn't realize a waxwork artisan would be so well versed in the subject. No, it is only elementary knowledge in the field of legal medicine. Well, I had no idea about it. But maybe I won't admit to my ignorance about forensic science. I could ask my father to give you a very simple primer if you'd like. I think corpses should be your domain. I'm not good with them. Oh dear, I'll do my very best. As dawn approached, I was very worried I could be discovered.
Hold it!
Sorry, I'm eating all the cheese powder. You say that you saw dawn approaching? What was the time of day then, approximately? Well, I could not say. But when I left the cemetery with my utensils and wax, the morning light was becoming visible. The execution took place on the 17th of June, which had the earliest sunrise of that year. Indeed it did. First light would have been around 4:40 in the morning. That is really early. The fact is, I had very little time, so I finished my work in a half hour. It was necessary to complete the impression and bury the body before daybreak, of course. If somebody had discovered me there, it would have been a catastrophe, so I had to hurry. Is it me, or does Mr. Sholmes seem to be taking shape more quickly now, too? You certainly appear to go to extraordinary lengths for your work, madam. I wonder, is what she just said particularly significant? It's significant. Kindly amend your formal testimony, then. With pleasure, my lord. I hurried to finish my work a half hour before sunrise, and then I left as soon as the corpse was interred. As soon as I left, the corpse was interred.
Hold it!
Did you have reason to believe you might be discovered once the sun came up or something? I had paid the grave digger money to keep my little secret, of course. But with the morning light, I knew that the warden from the prison would commence his control of the area. Couldn't you have paid off the warden too, then? I had already paid the grave digger, as I said. You cannot buy the silence of everyone, or the secret is no longer a secret, huh? The sunrise was at 4:40 a.m. that day, which means that it would have been around 4 when you began sculpting your work. Oui, that must be correct. That would have been the sign. Hold on. So it hadn't reached rigor mortis at 4. But if he died at midnight, he should have hit rigor mortis by then. For some reason, Dr. Scythe went along with Drebber's plan. Now, if that's really true, then the professor is the only other thing we know of that links the pair of them. So, I feel sure that the work must be a clue in this. The waxwork must be a clue in this mystery somehow. Covering what the professor has to do with all of this means more to Lord Van Zieks than anyone. That's the impression I'm getting anyway. Yes, as do I. After all, he has a profound connection to the professor as well.
Objection!
Madam to Spells. I have here an autopsy report that was filed 10 years ago now. It confirms the death of the professor following his execution at the gallows. And is that a problem? I believe it is, because your testimony and the particular detail in the report completely contradict one another. Quoi? Are you going to explain yourself, my Nipponese friend? According to her testimony, Madame Tuspels was creating her waxwork impression just before dawn, and at that time rigor mortis had not yet set in. Am I correct so far, madam? You are. Yes. As I said, the stiffening of the jaw is the first sign of rigor mortis, 2 to 3 hours after death. But the man's chin was limp, so he could not have been dead for a very long time. But on the other hand, if you look at Dr. Scythe's report, it quite clearly states the following. Death by hanging confirmed at midnight, 17th June. If the professor indeed died on midnight that day, then by the time you were sculpting his face, rigor mortis would have already set in. Yes, you are right. The chin would have been completely stiff. In other words, this report is wrong.
Objection!
No coroner makes mistakes when recording the time of death. The very idea is absurd. In that case, there's only one possible conclusion. The execution didn't actually take place at the stated time. And there's his weird heart-grabbing thing. Order, counsel. This is beyond folly. Not only did you indicate the author of the report, Dr. Scythe, but you also implicate the members of the staff at Barclay Prison where the execution took place. By heck, extraordinary. Not in my day. My learned friend appears to have overlooked one very crucial fact. What fact? That the professor died that night, without question. He did. Of course he did. I moved the man's lip jaw with my own hands. Yes, the professor died that night. But what if he didn't die at the gallows? Didn't die? Are you insane? What exactly are you suggesting did happen in that case? This is the only thing I can think of. Because we don't really have anything. Unless it's this. What is this?
Take that!
Objection!
Oh, so it's not the camera. Okay, if it's not the camera... This is all recent. Is it this? Is it the newspaper?
Take that!
Looks like it's the newspaper. It's written very plainly in this newspaper article. Executed criminal returns in the dead of night at a local cemetery. You're suggesting it was a corpse coming back from the dead now? Well, if this article is to be believed, yes. The professor, assumed dead following his execution, emerged from his grave and was killed again.
Objection.
Don't be a fool. That's simply a rumor published by the gutter press. Can you be certain of that? Are you serious? The point is, the article says there was a witness to what happened. A young man who stole into the cemetery by chance that night.
Objection.
Of course there was a witness. The story didn't write itself, but obviously the man made it all up. In any case, it was 10 years ago now. There would surely be no hope of finding him. On the contrary, my lord, we all know there was this witness well. What? In fact, you could say he's right here before my very eyes. You will substantiate your latest claim now, then, counsel. Who is the alleged witness? This guy!
Take that!
The man in question is Mr. Enoch Drebber. Drebber? The previous witness? The special exhibit in the House of Horrors at Madame Tussauds Museum of Waxworth recreates a decade-old scene in great detail. The condemned criminal emerging from the grave, and beside the tomb, a young man with a lantern stumbling upon the terrifying sight. And that young man is a 10-year younger Mr. Enoch Drebber. Order, order, order. Surely not, counsel. Drebber was there in Lowgate Cemetery? What is all this talk about Mr. Drebber? Is that name significant? Of course, Madame Tussauds doesn't know, does she? Yes, and extremely significant, madame, to your situation as well, in fact. What situation? The theft of the Professor Waxworth from your museum some days ago was perpetrated by the very same man. No, but that would mean... Madame Tussauds, it would appear you know the name Enoch Drebber. Oui, yes, I know it. But from long ago in the past. What? Oh my. Good gracious. Explain yourself. Tell us everything you know. Yes, of course. The story of the young man and the terrible sight he witnessed in the cemetery 10 years ago was published in every single newspaper in London and throughout Great Britain. However, in all of the articles, the witness was simply described as a certain young man. No details were published about his identity. His name was never revealed. Except in this one, apparently. That is, apart from one newspaper. The Daily Circus, the newspaper from which the article I have already shown in court. You're saying that his full name was only publicized in that article. it's her hair's in a braid. So 10 years ago, a young man appealed to the public about an extraordinary event he'd witnessed. A criminal who had been put to death re-emerging from his grave in the middle of the night. But the public treated his claim as nothing more than an amusing anecdote that was soon forgotten. 10 years later, the same man steals the waxwork model of the executed criminal, ostensibly to use as a body double for the victim in the case we're discussing here today. Even though the waxwork build is a poor match for the victim and his face is obscured by a mask. So the question is, why would the man do such a thing? Which brings us to 3 days ago when the birdcage crashed into the tower. The birdcage had, in fact, contained not the body of Mr. Osmond, but that same Waxworth. The coroner from Scotland Yard, who investigated Dr. Seif, would have noticed immediately. And yet, she submitted this autopsy report for the victim, which the court had seen earlier. Why? Because the waxwork was that of the professor. Is that what you're saying? Dr. Seif put her name on a document confirming the death of a condemned criminal who was still alive. The criminal whose apparent resurrection was witnessed by Mr. Drebber, but that misconduct was a deadly secret the coroner would do anything to protect. Which is precisely why Mr. Drebber used that particular waxwork as a body double. My lord, this court must summon Dr. Seif to the stand. The defense is determined to find out exactly how the coroner and Mr. Drebber are connected. But according to the missive I received this morning through the prosecutor's office, Dr. Seif is unable to participate in these proceedings. Is that not the case? She told us so herself, didn't she? Lord Van Zeeks won't be summoning me as a witness. Lord Strongheart has forbidden it. Something happened on the night of that killer's execution 10 years ago, and surely nobody would want to get to the bottom of it more than Lord Van Zeeks. The prosecution calls for the instructions in that missive to be scrapped. But Lord Van Zeeks, the mission was issued from Lord Chief Justice's office.
Objection!
The assigned prosecutor has final say on the policy in any particular trial. In other words, me. Yes. Yes. Let Enoch Drebber and Dr. Seif both take the stand together. Order, order, very well. I will uphold your request. Bailiff, send a subpoena with immediate effect addressed to Dr. Seif of the Forensic Investigation Team. The woman is compelled to attend on Her Majesty's orders. All right then, Enoch Drebber and Dr. Seif. If they weren't colluding with one another, this crime would never have been committed. I'm just a stone's throw away. I can feel it. The truth behind all of this is about to come out. Oh, we're gonna do this, huh? Thank you for your attendance on such short notice, Dr. Seif. I'm disappointed in you, Lord Van Zeeks. You've completely betrayed the agreed policy of both Scotland Yard and the prosecutor's office. Betrayal is not in my nature as long as the truth isn't compromised. If it is, if there's even a hint of wrongdoing, then no matter whom it concerns or disgruntles, I will pursue the matter to the bitter end, as any prosecutor would worth his salt. Mr. Drebber, you took the victim's life by means of a machine that you constructed in your workshop. And Dr. Scythe, as an investigating coroner, you were the first on the scene to examine the victim's body. It is the belief of the defense that you collaborated with each other and were both complicit in this crime. And where's your evidence? At present, we have no definitive evidence. We do have a very significant clue. What are you talking about? I'm talking about, of course, the Waxworth. The model of the killer known as the Professor who was sentenced to death 10 years ago. You don't need to tell me. I witnessed the man's execution with my own eyes. And officially pronounced him dead. That remains to be seen. Is that so? According to newspaper reports from the time, on the night following his execution, the killer came back to life. Don't waste my time. And the sole witness to that mysterious event was you, Mr. Drebber, wasn't it? What if what you saw in the graveyard that night 10 years ago wasn't some chilling fiction, but in reality, it would make you privy to the very great secret of Dr. Scythe's, a secret so profound, it could compel the coroner to agree to collaborate in your evil scheme, in fact. Mr. Drebber, tell the court. Tell everyone the truth of what you saw that night in Lowgate Cemetery. So he was the student who saw it. You can see the resemblance, can't you? Surely he's not going to claim it's really what he saw, especially not after all these years. Coo, coo, coo. Coo, coo, coo. What an interesting twist. When at the time not one person would take me seriously. Yet, here we are 10 years later, and suddenly my story matters, and in a court of law too. Very well then, if everyone so wishes. Let's be frank. I'll tell you the truth of what happened that night, and for what it's worth. So, Mr. Drebber, your testimony, please, about the events of that night 10 years ago. You will tell the court exactly what you stumbled across in Lowgate Cemetery. Yes, of course, as you wish. All right. It is time for sleep. Otherwise, I may not wake up properly in the morning for work. So, thanks to everybody who stopped by. It was wonderful. And hopefully we can get through whatever this weird turnabout is going to be about. I don't know. In any case, thank you so much, and hopefully I'll be able to get back to this game again soon and not take several weeks. Anyway, bye!